Well, I actually don't think that the question is why do students score differently at different times. I think it's fairly clear that if you think of yourself, you know, and how you feel on any particular day, your performance could be on or off. I think that the issue is more how do you deal with that? How do you allow the test to be accessible to the student who says, you know, I've taken the test 3 times and I got 60 in reading this time and 50 in listening. This time I got 50 in reading and 60 in listening. I need 60 across the board. What am I going to do? So because we are a small testing group, we make it possible for institutions and individuals to contact us. Each time a score is presented, it goes across my desk in particular, and I make a placement with it. It's an assessment. I look at performance of the student. I can see how many times he's taken the test and how his assessment is. If I find that something is an anomaly, and I understand that this is possible only because we're a small testing unit, but if I find that something is odd, I can contact that test taker and ask him, what are your goals? Why have you taken the test 10 times? What are you doing that is not, allowing you to progress? Or if we are involved with a school that is using our test, I can contact the administrator and say, these people have taken the test, what's happening? Here are the statistics about your test takers. So we have a personal relationship with the test taker and with the people who use our test. And I feel that that is so important in testing because it is assessment, and we all know that a student can do wonderfully in a classroom and bomb every time he sits down to take a test. And if his life depends on a score, then we need to support it in some way so that it's not barring him from his scholarship or continuing study or whatever it is.
Thank you all very much. Were there any questions from the floor about this issue?
Yes, please. Where is your test accepted? I mean, which institutions in Canada accept your test as much as TOEFL or IELTS?
The thing is, we are not international. We have some international professions that accepted the American Veterinarian Association and so on. But we are accepted by institutions across Canada, colleges, universities, and some professionals.
Any other questions?
Yes, I was wondering, for the IELTS tester, I was just wondering what your assessment would be. At what level of writing should a student be in the IELTS score in order to begin academic work at a community college? And I've taught at both universities and community colleges, and I can tell you that the writing requirements are not more difficult at university.
No, definitely not.
So what score? I'm looking for a specific score down to a point. That you would consider to be a minimum that would be required in order for the student to be successful.
I may just summarize the question. What IELTS score would be required for a student to succeed at community college?
At the writing profile.
In the writing component. And I'd be interested personally to hear about the TOEFL score and the CAEL score as well.
Sure.
That's an excellent question and one that we posed as well. Because we had an articulation agreement with the university, that was a pretty critical question for us too. You should know that IELTS doesn't determine scores for institutions. We don't, it's the receiving institution which says in order to get into our program you have to have a 6.5 and nothing lower than a band 6. Also, you don't have a writing score broken out specifically. You get it on your test report form, you get an average of your listening, reading, writing, speaking. But I can't answer your question for sure because I used to talk to graduate school officers. Because I know the University of Waterloo and Wilfrid Laurier and the University of Guelph the best, they generally suggest that they need a 6.5 in writing. And in most colleges in Ontario, I believe a 6.5 will get them direct entry into post-secondary programs. Now, having said that, I don't think that's enough. Because at a 6.5, actually, do you know that you can download the IELTS group bands from the IELTS.org website? There's a public version of the writing and speaking bands that's downloadable and free, and you should, because it's very, very close to the public, to the private version. A 6.5, in my opinion, will have candidates struggling in writing. They probably, if they've been through any EAP program, what they're going to be ahead of Canadian kids is that they're going to know 4 different types of essays. They're going to be able to, they're going to gain points on form where they lose points on language or lexis. You want me to stop?
So what score?
What score should they have? Oh dear, oh dear.
That's all the question.
You just said 6.5.
6.5 is what most institutions say. An interesting point though, for graduate students, it's lower than that. Graduate students require a lower entrance score than undergraduate students do in most post-secondary institutions, which I think is horrible. And when I talk to graduate officers, I say, do you realize that you're setting yourselves up for huge problems? I talk about the litigation in the Northeast United States where some university students are actually suing the universities because they can't understand the TAs. And they're suing universities saying, I wasn't able to get the most out of that course because I couldn't understand the foreign trained professors.
So again, the institution sets their own scores, and we've found that colleges often will accept 50 in writing. I would look at 50 across in all of the band and an overall 50. Many of the universities will accept 60. Carleton accepts 70 as the level, but you don't have, there's no distinction with the scores. So if you're talking about beginning to engage in academic work with ESL support, our institution allows them to begin to engage at a 40 level, so that's like level 4, but they can take one academic course, and then the idea is that they're supported through until they get into the 70 level. So there would be a year of study with, but in terms of going in as a regular student with no academic support, then often the colleges will accept 50 and 60, and the universities accept 60 and 70.
Just want to let everyone know that for TOEFL we do have what we call a standard setting kit, and for anyone who's interested in it, I can send you one of these. But what it does is it has actual writing samples from different students, and these have been scored. And so it gives you an idea, so you can look at the writing samples and say, okay, this is the writing that we need at our college or university, and therefore we're going to accept X TOEFL writing score. And so this standard setting kit, it can be very useful. I do have to tell you though that some universities haven't used it. They just go ahead and set a score without necessarily consulting us or looking at the standard setting kit. So in an ideal world, everyone would really focus on this, and as Barry said earlier, there perhaps would be different writing scores for different groups, engineers or medicine or so on, but unfortunately not all the universities take advantage of this.
But to answer your question about the score, we will be looking around the TOEFL 12 level for you.
Thank you. The thought occurred to me that if universities are setting the scores too low, perhaps the testing providers have a GP touch and make the test a little bit more challenging, so actually if a 6.5 is not good enough. Now it is, because we've actually changed the IELTS, but that's just, what do I know, right? I had a question that occurred to me was that any testing situation is artificial. People are in a room doing something they don't normally do, they're answering questions they wouldn't normally answer, they're reading passages about things they don't care about and are not interested in. And given that this is an artificial situation, one could suggest that it naturally, automatically leads to artificial results. To what extent do you agree or disagree? I just made that into an IELTS essay question. Specifically for Carol, but I think it would be similar to everyone else. So why is it that this artificial situation can be said to generate natural and realistic results? Doug first.
Well, I think it's a great question, and you know, everyone knows that if we stick someone in a room and we work with them for 2 weeks and we really assess their language ability really carefully, we can probably get a better answer than either CAEL, IELTS, or TOEFL. The problem is working with somebody for 2 weeks is going to cost $5,000, and it's going to take a lot of their time, it's going to take a lot of your time. And so I think with all the testing agencies, what we've done is we've made a reasonable compromise to keep the testing at a reasonable price to enable us to give a pretty accurate result of their English ability. Sure, we could do more with, you know, with unlimited time and unlimited money. You could come up with a perfect level for the student, but I think all the testing agencies have looked at this and said, okay, this is what we can do with the money and the time.
Maybe Wendy could say that she agrees or disagrees with those interesting valid answer.
Well, I definitely agree, but my approach is that I don't know whoever said academic English was authentic. You know, in a sense, and we all know that we keep saying, oh, you're at school now. When you get out into the real world, you're going to experience engineering or